Welcome to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. Your co-hosts, Jason Smith and Brian Bibbo, will inspire and teach you how to prosper in your mind, body, and spirit, not just your financial life. Joining forces with field experts, Jason and Brian are here to help you focus on what matters most in your life, living well.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this episode where I have my friend Aneta Kuzma with me today. So, Aneta, I would describe you as a meditation and wellness. I love the word guru, but coach. I don't know. How would you say that's pretty accurate?
It's interesting. I see myself definitely as a coach and somebody who believes in bringing in wellness principles and tools to help my clients really build integrated, balanced lives. And many times that includes bringing in things like meditation and breath work and yoga to regulate our nervous system because so many of us are dysregulated.
Yeah. And I think guide was the word that actually just came to mind too. If I think about my own experience with you, Aneta has been really helpful for me because not only did she do some sessions for our employees of our company, which was really helpful, different meditation sessions, and I've attended some of your virtual sessions that Aneta, you just make available to anybody who wants to join, right?
I do. I feel like it's so important. And sometimes, especially as professionals, or if we're not exposed to some of these practices, you hear about meditation, you might hear about breath work and not understand really what does that mean? How could I leverage it? And by making it available for people to experience themselves, I see the shift and I see the connection. And then suddenly people are more interested in learning how they can incorporate it into their own lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were a big help for me personally. I just saw you speak last week. Again, I wanted to come check you out and support you at the Cozy Small Business Annual event or symposium. So
Yeah.
that was a really cool experience here in Cleveland. And I also have your book, and that is also an author. But for me personally, I was leading up to an open heart surgery that I had to have for a valve repaired that I was born congenital. My grandma gave me that gift. She had the same thing. And it was a little daunting leading up to it for sure. And I wanted to have the best experience that I could, both mentally and physically, going into that surgery. So not only did I train physically, going to yoga and strength training and doing cardio and everything I could to get myself physically ready to have that kind of trauma on my body and be able to recover as fast as I could. But I also, Aneta was one of the ones that helped me to prepare mentally. And
Mhm.
so we did a series of some breath work and meditation one on one that was really instrumental in helping me visualize and uncover almost like in a subconscious kind of state, right? That I was able to tap into, which is very similar to what you go into when you are under anesthesia. And previously, years ago, I didn't have a good experience when I was under, and I didn't want to have that repeat itself. And we just did some really transformative work. And I'd love to just talk a little bit about that, Aneta, and what you helped me with to prepare for that.
Yeah, I loved how intentional you were, Jason, about your surgery. And it was a big surgery. And because you had a previous experience that did not go as you would have liked, and you had time to reflect on it, I think you were very intentional about not having the same experience again. And so we did schedule a somatic experience, which included some movement and then also breath work. And we set intentions for what you wanted. I think we had 2 sessions. And the first one was really to release anything that you may have stored in your body, memories, worries, fears, limiting beliefs about what could happen, what could go wrong again, and really working through that and getting to a place of release. And then the second session, I think, and I believe after we talked, you were able to actually have a pretty powerful experience there. And then the second session was about bringing in a sense of letting go, of surrendering, of peace, of calm, of really feeling certain and confident that you were in the best possible hands and visualizing exactly the way you wanted it to go. So the first one I think was definitely like, let's let go and release anything that may be here from before. And
Yeah.
then how do we now invite in an intention of what you want instead?
Yeah. And it was really something else. And I tell you, I never realized how powerful your breath can be.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I was in a yoga class at Inner Bliss here in the Cleveland area. And I remember the first time ever that I was meditating and tapped into that almost euphoric state that a lot of people have experienced when they go into a deep meditation. It was like a yin yoga, slow
Yeah.
flow. And I remember, her playing the music. Name is Sally, actually, was her name. And she just took me into that state that I didn't even know existed, other than the only other time I had previously ever felt that before was in prayer. And I'd never had that in a meditative kind of state. And I was just really blew me away. And you were able to help me go into that same kind of experience, but an even deeper level, I think, is through breath work. And maybe for those that aren't familiar or have never heard of somatic breath work, that maybe you could talk a little bit about that. I know I've briefly talked about that on another podcast, but yeah, maybe you can help the listeners understand a little bit more of what that is and how it achieves the goal of going even deeper, which is what
Yeah.
we were able to do.
Yeah, I think with both meditation and breath work, for me, I call them anytime I meditate or breathe, I say it's my date with the divine. If people are say, how do you define it? That's what I call it because I do, for me, believe that's my connection to something greater than myself. And both with meditation and breath work, we are reminded that we have an eternal spiritual part of us, our soul, our spirit, whatever it is that you call it. And then we also inhabit these fleshy, earthly bodies that we have, right? The physical. And the breath work is so amazing because the breath is our very first gift as we come down into this body. It's the very first breath we take, right? When the babies are born, you hear them, you want to hear their gasp for air, you know that's a good sign. And then as we transition, we expel our last breath. And so breath is the life force and within us, and it's with us always. Now, most of the time, we don't pay attention to it, but it is our respiratory systems are only automatic and also controlled system of the body. So when you are doing controlled breath work, and there's breath work that relaxes you, and there's breath work that's more activating, you are actually stimulating different parts of your body. So you can slow your heart rate down, you can start to lower your blood pressure with it, you can reduce the stress. You can also activate. We did a lot of activating breath, which will help actually release trauma from the body. It'll identify things that are stored, maybe memories, things that are in the body you're not even aware of, and can help move that energy through. And so you can create with these journeys, and we did a very long breathwork session. It was over an hour, it's like an hour and a half. You are actually going on this journey where you can create real transformation within the body. And so it's pretty amazing. And even I say 3 deep breaths can regulate your nervous system. But when you start going on longer journeys, you can actually release trauma and create some really transformative experiences.
Yep. Yeah, and that's exactly what I experienced. I remember the first time I did breath work was at a somewhat of a wellness and yoga retreat, a place called Miraval. And then I know we spoke, I was at the Austin, Texas location, and they took me through a breath work experience. And I had no clue what I had in for me. And it brought out some experiences that I had as a child that just bubbled up to the surface, and was definitely a very emotional and very real event. But I can tell you, it definitely brought a sense of peace and healing afterward, me being able to go through that experience.
And that's what I experienced it myself. Like I've done breath work through yoga and we have those experience with pranayama, but I was at a conference and the CEO of Pause Breathwork, Sam Skelly, who is the program I went through to get certified, she spoke and she did this breathwork session. And I, like you, I'm sitting in a chair in a dress amongst all these other women, these entrepreneurs. And all of a sudden, I just find myself having this experience, like in a chair sitting next to all these folks. I was crying. I was feeling such big emotions and a release. And I opened my eyes and I thought, oh, I'm different. Something real happened here. And the very next day I signed up and I said, I need to sign up for this because I need to do more of this for myself. And I want to bring it to all of my clients because with coaching, you do a lot of work, but with incorporating breath work in those programs and the experiences, you can somatically really get deeper.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he made a statement that I thought was just so powerful. And unfortunately, he had probably the most difficult childhood I've ever heard of before. And when I say experienced, it's because when he described it to me, I was in tears. I was in
Mhm.
shock and tears hearing his experiences as a child and just horrific. And he has been in therapy ever since he's been a child. And this is a highly functioning CEO of a really nice sized company
Yeah.
and just a wonderful human being. But he had made the statement that the breathwork sessions that he has undergone over the course of the last year, when I was having this conversation with him, he got more out of that 1 year therapeutically than he did
Mhm.
of over 25 years of therapy that he had
Yeah.
received, traditional meeting with the therapist. So
Yeah.
that really blew me away when I heard that statement. And then it was funny, the first time I did it, I had similar to you, some probably unresolved trauma from
Yeah.
childhood that bubbled up and was good and released and dealt with. The next time I had one of the most beautiful experiences ever where I had visions of my children as adults and
Mhm.
the success. And it was very tied to their unique strengths and abilities they have right now as children that I can see already but it was like seeing them as adults. It was really just something else and just such a cool, fun, almost inspirational experience.
It's amazing. You just don't know what's going to happen. And that's why it is important, I would say, to find practitioners who are trauma informed, who can help you integrate what is happening afterwards, because you can have very profound experiences and you don't want to be left in that particular situation. You want to make sure that you feel safe at all times. Yeah.
Right. And I've heard a lot of people compare it to being on psychedelics, right?
Yeah.
And somebody described it, and I wouldn't be able to describe it again the same way. It was actually a doctor that was speaking at a conference I was at that was well versed in this. And he explained something around like the frontal cortex or part of your brain that the same kind of experience happens that can in psychedelics that you can experience that in breath work as well.
Yeah. I think we go past our ego. We go past our limiting thoughts if we can get to tap into a state where we allow ourselves to let go and surrender. And that's when the journey begins. And I think with psychedelics, it's very similar, right? We turn off the thinking mind and allow ourselves to go deeper because so much of, even when I help people meditate, it's sometimes there's this fear of letting go. There's a fear of what will happen if I allow myself to just surrender in this moment. We always feel like we need a little bit of control. And so sometimes the breath work or even psychedelics will take you past that point, and then you can actually experience the magic.
Let's talk about meditation for a moment.
Sure.
And from a definition, gosh, I still can recall years ago before I had ever meditated. It was funny for many years, I wanted to start doing yoga. I knew
Mhm.
all the great benefits of it. And I didn't know the difference really of what meditation, what part of yoga that was. It turns out it's more like usually at the beginning or the end of a yoga session, the instructor will take you through a little bit of meditation. And I always wanted to do yoga, and that was my introduction into meditation. But it was very like a little bit before or a little bit after, right?
Right.
The yoga class. And I talked to you already about how the experience I had with Sally at Inner Bliss was my first, like, whoa, this is really transformative.
Yeah.
But I had heard for so many years all the benefits of meditation, and some of the best and biggest success stories in the world, right? Like thinkers in the world that I've followed, I've heard them talk about meditation, but I can't say that I really ever got it, right?
Yeah.
I just didn't get it. I thought it was weird. Thought it was, I don't know. I just didn't understand. Like, how do I shut my mind down? I
Yeah.
think too fast. It races. I'm not going to be able to do it. I don't know how to do it. Yoga gave me a little bit of that introduction and that aha moment I could. And then I started like developing my own routine of how I could do it on my own without somebody else having to take me through their process. And so I'd love, Aneta, for you to talk about what your definition of meditation is, like just a general description for those that currently don't meditate. And then maybe after that we can talk a little bit about routines. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that sometimes people are scared of meditation because they think that you are going to turn your mind off or quiet your thoughts completely. And that's the goal. And so then I hear a lot of times from clients, they'll say, I'm not wired that way. I can't do it. And I always say, you're not special. We all struggle the same way. Our mind always races. So for me, I like to simplify it and say meditation for me, if I were to bring it down to a basic definition, is just getting quiet and present. It's allowing yourself to just sit with yourself. It's allowing yourself to sit with the divine, to your creator, to the universe, whatever it is, something beyond yourself, and just get curious and notice your breath, notice your body, notice your thoughts, and constantly coming back to the present moment without any judgment. And there's so much insight that we can gain through that practice. We could see, wow, what is the quality of my thoughts? Am I tightening my body or storing tension somewhere? Is there a way to soften that? How do I feel in this moment? Is my heart racing? And it's just coming back to those little noticing of the body, the breath, the mind over and over again. And in that process, as we release and we continue to come back, you'll get to the place where suddenly you're like, oh, things are a little bit more quiet. I do feel a little bit more relaxed in this moment. I'm able to settle in to my cushion and not think about my knees hurting or my grocery list. And every time you show up, you're building new neural pathways. Every time you show up, you are regulating your nervous system. You're getting to a place where your mind, your body, your breath, everything is connected and aligned. And meditation, as yoga practice itself, the postures, they're all they're limbs of yoga. So yoga has 8 limbs. And of course, meditation is one of them. Breath work is one of them. The postures of asana are one. So they are under the umbrella of the 8 limbs of yoga. So I think most people don't necessarily know that because in the West, we keep everything very separate, but they are.
How long's, I guess, yoga then been around? About that's
Actually,
like
over
India,
5
right?
yeah, over
Oh,
5,000 years ago, I think, were the first depictions or indications that we found. So long time.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I know for me, I when I really wanted to develop a daily habit of meditation, and they serve me well. Meditation and yoga and journaling, right? Are my when I'm doing that every morning, I'm in my best season of life, right?
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
go through different seasons of life. I heard someone describe it this way one time. And don't beat yourself up if you're going through a season when you're not doing your ideal, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's eating healthy or whatever vices you might have, that you get ebb and flow, right?
Yeah.
But I know for me, I'm my best version of myself when I'm following my daily routine. And one of the things that helped me was there was a book, or it is a book, called Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
And I tell you, like going through, and they even created a workbook, which I didn't
Mhm.
realize till after I took the book, I read it, And then I went back and I highlighted and I jotted out using the framework to create my own daily routine. And one of the things I know that has helped me immensely was following this kind of atomic habits framework or structure to create my own routine. And it all starts with what's the first thing you do when I wanted a morning routine. And the first thing when I open my eyes, the first thing I think about is I have to put my feet on the floor. And it was
Mm.
just simply step one, not grab my phone,
Yeah.
not start looking at texts or emails or news or none of that, which is something I do when I'm not in a good season. Keeping the phone out of the room the night
Mhm.
before, charging it somewhere else. In my case, it's like in the closet, and then putting my feet on the floor. And then when I put my feet on the floor, then I know at that point it's 15 steps. So it's
Mm.
15 steps to go out of my room. I can count the steps into the room across from my room where I have a chair set up. And then I
Mm.
staged it. I put a candle there. I
Yeah.
put a lighter next to the candle, and
Mhm.
I have my journal sitting there, and I have a soft lamp that's set up, and the lamp's already on. So overnight, so I can see my way into there. But I light the candle, and then I start my routine. And
Yeah.
I don't need to go through the whole thing, but the very first piece is the meditation.
Mhm.
And personally, I like to have a little bit of guidance or music. So I use Insight Timer,
Yeah.
which is an awesome app
Mhm.
that I enjoy, and I know exactly what I like to listen to. So I turn that on, and when I light the candle, and it's a routine, and it works really well for me of just having that routine. And because before, I think it was just too easy to break the routine and grab my phone or do something else. But once that set, that helped me at least. Talk about that, Aneta. Talk about what's your routine or how might somebody else develop their own unique routine?
Yeah, and I wanna highlight a couple of reasons why maybe you're sticking to yours too. You added friction so that you for the phone, so you put it somewhere else, it's not next to you. It's a little harder to go get, which is awesome. So you've added some friction for that, but you removed the friction for your routine. You've made it very easy. Okay, muscle memory. I'm going to focus on my feet touching the ground. I know exactly where I'm going from here. I'm going to count my steps. The space you created is very inviting. This is where I meditate. This is my chair. Here's my candle. It's a ritual. And so those are all things that are successful tactics when you're trying to build a new habit. I wake up and I love to read. I have certain devotionals that I read and certain books from, and then I do writing in a journal. And so I like to do that with a cup of coffee and just my first cup and just savoring it and enjoying it. I'll play either like Solfeggio frequency music, which is really great. It's all the great Hertz musics that are awesome to really balance all your chakras. And that just feels really good. It's that muscle memory of, oh, this is the playlist that I listen to when I'm journaling. And then I come into the space where I meditate. I have a cushion. I also light my candles. I like it nice and dark. I just have a little Himalayan lamp with a little bit of light in here. And for me, I like to meditate with, I don't know why, I put a blanket over my head. It's actually something in yoga we learn where you do sensory deprivation. It's a way to get inward and connect yourself. Think of almost like a prayer shawl. And sometimes at church or people cover their heads when they pray. So for me, just getting in that nice, quiet, dark space just feels like I go inward really fast. And then after I do the meditation and some breath work, I always incorporate breath work, then I'm ready to go. I'm ready to teach. And during my own meditation and my practices in the morning, I just receive so much guidance around what it is that I'm going to be building for my classes. And then I go and teach yoga and meditation. And then after I finish that, I love to go for a walk, like being in nature for me, being outside, being in the sunshine, feet on the ground, grounding is so important. And so when I'm able to do all those things, and I have a very heavy morning routine because I know that's what lights me up. That's what gives me what I need to do to be able to hold space for all my clients because it does require a lot of energy to do the work that I do.
Wow. That is really awesome.
And I forgot to add that before I get out of bed, actually, the first thing I do is my gratitude, just eyes closed. Just when I wake up, I just say, what am I grateful for? And I just go through a list of things because gratitude is so powerful. It's one of the highest frequencies and energies. And starting your day with gratitude before anything else comes your way is just another wonderful way to just say, today's going to be an awesome day.
Yeah, that's the key part of my journaling process is gratitude. When you get in that mindset of gratitude, and then I make it a practice when I do that to pick one human being that I send a text to, and a
Oh,
very specific text about why I'm grateful to them and what about them I'm grateful for, either what they have done in the past or just how their character, what makes up them. So that, and I'll tell you, the responses I get back are just so wonderful
oh
because
gosh.
I know what an amazing difference I made just by sending that text first thing in the morning.
I'm going to steal that. I think we all should do that. And of course, to be on the other end of it, to think, wow, someone's thinking of me this early in the morning. How awesome is that? Puts a smile on their face, I'm sure.
I that's one of my favorite parts of it. Yep. So the meditation routine, what would you say is for those that are like, all right, I think I really want to take the next step and I want to start to try to incorporate meditation into their life. What would be some suggestions, Netta, that people could follow to embrace meditation?
Yeah, I think there's so many different types of meditation. So the first thing I would ask for folks to do reflection on is, do I need some guidance? And so there's so many great resources. You can go to YouTube and find amazing meditations. You can go to Insight Timer, like you said. There's also paid meditation apps, of course, many of those. Connecting with someone's style, connecting with the voice of the person that's doing meditation is really important. And when you're starting, doing a little bit of guidance would be great. And over time, you might identify what type of meditation suits you best. Sometimes you can do a mantra. For folks that have a hard time quieting their mind, they might want to recite a mantra or a phrase over and over again. Some people might want to do very heart-centered meditation. So there's many different types and lots of books that are out there. I also happen to offer a free week of meditation with me. I do a live meditation. So if you want to be in the energy and company of someone live, I do that on Zoom. It's virtual and offer it for a week for free just because I really want people to be able to experience it. It's at 7 in the morning, Monday through Friday, and then also at 9 in the morning on Saturdays.
Yeah. What a commitment you make to do that 7 a.m., 7 days a week, right?
Yeah, I take Sundays off.
Days off, yeah.
I started it during COVID, and here's the truth, Jason. I didn't expect this to be part of the business, or what I did is on a regular basis. But during COVID, so many of my clients were fearful and they were just really concerned. And as I was talking to many companies at the time, I said, you know what, let me just offer this. And I did it for free for 6 weeks because we didn't know how long COVID would last. We didn't know when were people expected to go back to work. And as we know, people's routines were disrupted. They were dealing with all kinds of stressors, new things, new information, a lot of fear. A lot of people were experiencing loss. And coming together in community and being able to practice together, and for me to be able to hold space for folks and we could talk about what it was that people needed, it just became this thing that just had a life of its own. And after 6 weeks, I said, do we want to keep doing this? And people said, yes, please. And now it's been since March of 2020. So that's how it started. You just sometimes the most unexpected things work out the way they do.
Yeah. And Aneta, your book, Live the Width of Your
Yeah.
Life. What does that mean? What's live the width?
Or-
Share with everyone,
Yeah,
please.
so it comes from a Diane Ackerman quote. And I remember reading it when I was in corporate and burned out and probably not my best version of myself. And she says, when I get to the end of my life, I don't want to look back and realize I only lived the length of it. I want to have lived the width of it. And it made me really think and reflect, what does that mean? And in my mind, I thought, okay, living the length means just looking forward to the next thing. I am going to achieve this goal. I'm going to get through the day. I'm going to get through this meeting, get to the weekend, get to the holidays, and it's very linear thinking, very forward, and not being very present. And I thought the with, wow, what does that mean? And so for me, as I started exploring, the with meant we can't control how many days we have, but we can control what we do with the days that we do have. And how do I fill every single day with the things that bring me joy, the things that matter most to me, that are aligned to my values, that incorporates all the things that are so important to me. And when we do that every day, suddenly you have a life that is broad and has a lot of depth and breadth. And that's what it means. And so this became, I actually trademarked Live the With because I thought, wow, this is exactly what I want to do with all of my coaching, with my wellness programs, with the books that I write, with the podcast. And so then I wrote a book. I thought, you know what? I know that many of us like me consume a lot of self-help books and we listen to podcasts and we're always taking in information, but it's actually the application that sometimes is the harder part, is doing something daily. And so it's a daily devotional. There is a prompt every single day that's a challenge or a journal prompt based on the theme of the day. Because I wanted people to go back to the atomic habits where James Clear says just 1% better. All you have to do is 1% better every single day. And through the compound effect at the end of the year, it equals 34% better. And so if you start my book January and you finish it in December, you should see some transformation as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you gave a lot of great advice on how to start. You have the free resource of A Week with You. Your book, obviously, is 365 days of how to go about doing that. In the Atomic Habits, too, I love how they talk about just start, even if you're just going to start with 1 minute, right? Or
Yes.
2 minutes or 3 minutes, just like all you have to do, though, is think about put your feet on the ground,
Yeah.
right? Count the steps or whatever
Yeah.
your routine might be, and just go in there for a minute or 2 minutes or when it's so small. And then by the time you're there, then maybe you go a little bit longer, and maybe you don't, and that's okay. But you
Yeah.
can work your way up to whatever length of time that ends up suiting you best.
And that's such a great reminder, too, because so many of us say, my routine, I want to go to the gym for an hour, but I can't. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to start working. And instead, I say, sometimes when I'm making coffee, I do push ups against my countertop, or I'll do squats, or I'll do some stretches, or I'll go outside and do some deep breaths. There are things that we can do, but just show up for yourself and then celebrate that. Even if it's the smallest little thing, like you said, 1 minute, 2 minutes, a couple of things, taking a break in the day. But do it with intention. Don't beat yourself up that you couldn't do more. Give yourself lots of grace and then just celebrate it. And then tomorrow, maybe tomorrow you get to do more.
Yep. Yep. And Aneta, to that point, sometimes when I'm going through a season when I feel procrastination or just get out of the habit where I'm not meditating, journal, and yoga
Yeah.
to start my day, one of the things I found that has helped me to get back into that swing of things, and I think people could even consider this if they haven't done it yet, is I know I can squeeze 10 minutes in, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll do 3 minutes of meditation, 3 minutes of yoga, which is basically just stretching,
Yeah.
and then 3 minutes of journaling. And the most important thing is to get that gratitude journaling
Mhm.
and figure out who that person is I'm going to send that text to. But and then I lengthen it. And where my sweet spot I know I've found is 10 minutes for each of those, a total
Mhm.
of 30. But
Mhm.
sometimes I don't have enough time and I need to do it condensed, or sometimes I just need a little, all right, I'm going to do this no matter what. And I can squeeze 10 minutes in and just by doing 3 minutes of each. So it's applying those principles they talk about in that book.
Oh, it's so true. And also, I remind people we tend to over index on the things we like, and we tend to skip the things we don't necessarily like yet. And so, if you also reframe and say, what can I do for myself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually every single day? And make sure you do something for each of those things, you'll probably have a pretty well rounded routine.
Yeah. Great advice. Thank you so much for being on here today, Aneta.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sure everybody enjoyed and got some great information. And what's your website? What's a way that they can go check out some of the things we talked about today?
Yeah, website's great. So it's anetakuzma.com or livethewith.com. Both will go to the same place, and you'll find all my social channels there, the book, the podcast, anything that you can schedule free coaching consultation, sign up for any of the classes. And yeah, I would love to hear from your community.
Excellent. Thank you. And we'll see you all on the next podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or if you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please call 456-833-7000. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family. Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors, PCA, an SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management and PCA are separate, non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance and tax services offered through J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including, but not limited to, age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information. For information pertaining to the registration status of PCA, please contact the firm or refer to the investment advisor public disclosure website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. For additional information about PCA, including fees and services, send for our disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money.